Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I've got a great video for you. Let me ask you, how many of you have avoided making a quilt because you do not know or you're afraid of making a Y-seam? I know I've done that a few times, but after you've done it and you see how easy it is, you're going to want to get out those quilts and make them because it's really not that intimidating. So stick around and I'll show you how to make that elusive and scary Y-seam, but really, it's not that scary. Let's get to it. So in today's video, we are going to sew. This is the one of the sections from an Amazon star, and we've already sewn a lot of the pieces together. Today, we're going to sew this Y seam. So we have to sew one side first and then the other. And after we sew those together and sewn, this is what it looks like. This is where they intersect in the Y. So we're going to show you how to get a nice even seam. Now when we're sewing these together, not only do we have to do the Y seam, we also have to make sure that we match up some of these other seams in here. So we kind of got to take our time, match these up, and that's what we'll do. So this is the illustration that shows the assembly of the quilt, and this is the piece right here that I was showing you on in the fabrics. So I've got this piece sewn together, and we need to add this star unit right here, diamond unit, to make the star. Once we finish assembling that, then we see this diagram here that shows the pressing illustration, and then we'll go to the next assembly diagram where we assemble all those pieces together. But after that, then we have another Y seam that we'll have to come in here and do with these big corner pieces. So I'm going to show you those two different, how to do this Y seam right here with this little diamond, and then we'll assemble this and come back and I'll show you how to inset this big square. This is a 104 by 104 quilt, so it's pretty big pieces, but we'll get them together and we'll show you how to do those two different type of Y seams and get this quilt assembled. Here we are with our pieces that need to be sewn together for the Y seam, and this is our first seam here. And what we want to do is make sure that we stop at least a 1/4 inch prior to the end there. I've made a little mark, and then we'll be sewing this piece. The Y seam is this seam and these two seams here. So what we'll do is we're going to mark a 1/4 inch here, which I've already made a mark there, but I want to show you how I did it. I actually have a little template that I made years ago that is perfect for my 45-degree diamonds here. And I just make a little mark with my pencil. But you can also use a ruler that has a 1/4 inch mark and just come out from the corner a little bit and make your 1/4 inch mark, which is at the same place. So you don't need any fancy tools, just a 1/4 inch ruler and a pencil. Then what we're going to do is match this dot here up with the dot there, and we'll sew down this line, and then we'll come back and turn and go down this way. So let's take it over to the sewing machine here. I'm going to put my pin through my 1/4 inch mark here. This is the wrong side, this is the right side. Then I'm going to also put it through right through this seam allowance here where this dot is. So we're going to line these up and sew down this seam, and then we'll come back and we'll start on this side and we'll go on this seam. And that should give us the perfect Y seam, and it should line up and lay nice and flat. So let's go to the sewing machine and get this sewn, and we'll come back and show the other side. All right, when we get to the sewing machine, what we're going to do is drop the needle right down on that 1/4 inch mark and kind of maneuver around so I can get my needle exactly on that 1/4 inch dot. And then I'll pull my pin out and drop my needle. And I'm going to do a stay stitch with my machine, which I can do a couple stitches at a time. And then we'll sew down this side. Okay. So we've got that nice intersection there. Now what I'm going to do is just pivot. You can see where these are. There's kind of a little intersection there. We're going to pivot and go down this seam here. So same thing, start at this 1/4 inch intersection right where that seam is. Drop my needle right in that same spot where all these seams have started. Get it. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'll do a stay stitch. One more time. And then we're just going to sew this second leg. Okay, so time for the big reveal. Here's where all 3 of the seams intersected. And now we're going to flip it over. And there is my Y seam. Doesn't that look good? So let's get it pressed and see what it looks like after the pressing. Okay, so the seam gets pressed this way towards the unit that we just sewed. This is the intersection right there. That looks really nice. After pressing, it looks nice and flat on the front. Let's take a look at the back. The seams are all nice and pressed, and a nice and flat seam on the front. Let me zoom in a little bit and show you this intersection. Okay, so we've done this Y seam. Now I'm going to sew the rest of these units together so we can get to the next Y seam, which is the big square that goes in. So stay tuned and we'll be right back for the next Y seam, which is a square sewing in rather than a diamond sewing in. All right, we've assembled a large portion of the quilt. We did the Y seams in this area now, and that was more of a putting a diamond in there. Now we're to this part where we need to put a big square into the corner of the quilt, and this is like the outer border portion. So let me grab that piece. The process of sewing this big square in here is just slightly different than how it was when we sewed the diamond in on the other side. This is more of a 90-degree angle where we had more of a 45-degree angle on the other Y. What I'm going to do with this one is, so this is the first section of the Y, this seam right here, and we left a 1/4 inch unsewn so that we can add and sewing these, both of these sides to that 1/4 inch intersection right there. So what I'm going to do with the square is we're going to sew this side first, and we're going to sew from the top down to the intersection. Then we'll pivot and turn the piece and sew down the other side. So I'm just going to kind of work on this right now. This is our corner right here. We're back with everything ready to sew. We're getting close to the corner down here, so I have my pin marked at the 1/4 inch intersection here. You see that pin there? I'm going to sew down. I'm right there at the 1/4 inch intersection. So now what I'm going to do is the next side that I have to sew is this side here. So I'm going to pivot this. So now it's in my sewing direction. And now I'm going to bring this other side of the square around. And we'll start sewing down this way. And I will show you what it looks like when we're all done. We're just coming to the end of our second side that we've stitched down. All right, let's take a look and see how we did on the Y seam. Okay. Here's our Y seam that we just did. These are the seams, and there's the little intersection there. Didn't turn out too bad. We'll get it all pressed. Okay, so we're at the pressing station here. This seam gets pressed to the left, so all the seams around the whole quilt will all be going the same way. So we're going to press press to the left. I'm just going to do this small portion here at the Y seam so we can see what it looks like nice and pressed. All right, let's zoom it in here. Here's our Y seam, the 2 seams that we sewed on the square. And this was the one connecting all the blocks. So there you have it. That is how you do a Y seam with a square inset. And then over here, right here, is your Y seam where we did the diamond inset. So this is on the Amazon Star. I'll show you a picture of the finished quilt, and hopefully this encourages you to get those Quiltworx quilts out, or honestly any quilt that has Y seams. They're really not that difficult. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing, and you'll be notified of all my next upcoming videos. And we'll see you in the next one. Happy quilting!